Welcome to the Greg Struss Show. I'm Greg Struss, coming to you almost live and direct here from Studio 688 at Cable Television City in the west side of Chicago. And I am grateful that you are joining us tonight, every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock here on Channel 19, and of course on YouTube.com. I have to tell you, it has been kind of a trying weekend for me. All right, I'm coming out of the weekend when we're producing this show. And I really feel as though I've been in a petty-like mood, all right? Whenever I run into an issue with a coworker, as a lot of us do, I get upset and I get angry, and then I kind of become introverted, I guess, for a while, because I don't like when somebody presents themselves one way and then does something that's kind of against the character of them that I know, all right? What I'm running into a lot lately is how others feel that they're more important than me. And I guess this has been going on for a while, but when it starts to seep into a job and job responsibilities or getting extra hours and you've worked at a place longer than somebody, it kind of like makes me think, wow, this obviously is not a place that values me. All right, and that's okay. It's not the greatest job in the world. It's been a job. It's okay. I'm grateful for it. It got me through a period of time. And now I know that I need to do something else. However, it doesn't make me feel good when somebody kind of undermines me. And I wish I were better at and better able to rise above it, all right? So I want to talk about pettiness tonight, and as it applies to what's been going on in the news, and of course in addiction and recovery as we do every week, all right? When we talk about recovery and we talk about addiction, we talk about feeling hopeless, all those things. So what we try to do on this program, talk about current events as they relate to addiction and recovery, okay, recovering from that addiction and getting on with life and finding the solution, whatever that solution is. We're not hearing a lot, at least I'm not hearing a lot, about solutions on a daily basis. You know, what I don't care for is when there's double standards, all right? A double standard is when, let's say there's a rule for somebody, a rule for how we act, and somebody steps out of line and they're not called on it. But if I step out of line, breaking that rule, I'm called on it. So there's a double standard. Not that I step out of line often or break a rule, but sometimes that happens. And what I find amazing is the double standard, all right? I'm held to a different level than other people are, even though it's the same job, the same situation, what have you. And I'm not talking about my work per se. I'm just saying in general, this is what I've run into, and I'm seeing a lot of this, that lack of personal accountability, okay? And we need that right now. And, and part of that is becoming self-aware and saying, you know what, I have my own identity. We've talked about this in the past couple shows. I have my own belief system. I have my own values. And it doesn't mean that my values, whether they're different than other people's, are any less than the group, okay? So right now we're seeing a lot that's going on with the things that are happening at the border right now. All right, what people fail to see is that there are laws in place for this. Now, some of you will say, oh, there he goes again, being on his conservative talk. I'm not talking about conservatism, and I'm not talking about liberalism. I'm talking about the law, all right? And we have no respect for the law and for those things that are kind of part of a higher power, if you will. All right, when we talk about believing in a higher power, it doesn't necessarily we have to believe in the higher power, but there's higher powers out there, okay? Government is a higher power than us. The criminal justice system is a higher power than us. All right, why would you say the government's a higher power? Well, they tax us, right? If we don't pay our taxes, there's a penalty. If we don't do certain things, varying from wrong, from right, if we break the law, we get penalized for that. We either get arrested, we get fined, or we serve time in jail. That's a law, all right? Now all of a sudden, there's an issue with law and order. And I'm sorry, there's a difference between right and wrong, all right? If you're running out of a building, I'll give you an example. If you're running out of a building and you have something in your hand and a police officer says, stop, and I don't stop, but I have something in my hand and I keep running, they are justified to take action to stop me from running, especially if a crime has been committed. However, we don't see this. We're not teaching our kids the difference between right and wrong, or finding the excuse. All right, how many parents have kids that are playing, basketball or baseball? Baseball's popular. And they always are getting into it with the coach. Well, you're not letting Tommy play. And the coach has to go back and forth and say, look, I have a whole team and a whole roster. Little Tommy hasn't come to practice, and little Tommy isn't putting forth much effort. So why am I going to give him special treatment when I have an entire team that's showing up for practice and doing things? All right, just because we're a part of something doesn't mean we're owed something. Now, having played softball and things, you go to practice sometimes, your skill level isn't where it needs to be to win that game, and you sit. And it's quite dehumanizing to go through that. I mean, I faced that in my adult life, and I was angry about it. But it's part of being on a team that we don't always get to play the position we want. And we always don't get to play every single game, because there's other people that are either more skilled or have put in more effort or know somebody that I don't. And if I don't like it, then I go to another team or I stop playing. Again, finding that solution, whatever that solution is. So in recovery and addiction, we try to find the solution. And today, I really think we need to find that solution, especially when things get to be as petty as they have been as of late. So I want to talk about how pettiness plays into addiction, plays into negative messaging, and really tainting a life instead of being happy, joyous, free, as some people say, all right? Not having the emotional burdens of carrying a grudge. And I wish I were better at that. Now, I've gotten better at it, and I don't like to have a grudge. I don't want to have a grudge against somebody over something petty. However, what I would like is the same kind of respect that I give. So calling out somebody or saying this is unfair when you're being unfair, walking in and getting extra hours and then cutting someone out of their shift, how is that fair? So those are things that are going on right now. And what I'd like to what I want to point out is the messaging and what we're listening to on a daily basis coming out of the media. All the negativity. Instead of having our self-awareness and saying, you know what, I smell something that's not right here, because you know what? There's a lot of consistency in the negative messaging of what's going on in the country. Not everything is negative. Just because a group of people think that something's negative doesn't mean that everybody believes it. And you know what the difference is? The people that might think differently end up caving in or not sharing it, right? Because if I go against the grain, people are going to bully me and say, oh, well, there's something wrong with you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. And I'm glad you're joining us again every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, here on Channel 19, and of course on YouTube.com with the search words The Greg Struss Show. I am Greg. This is The Greg Struss Show. We are emanating from the west side of Chicago. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back in just a moment.
That's nice. I'm looking all the way over here, and now I'm looking all the way over here. Let's hear it for Darla and Scott. Lay one on me. How are
No kissing. No kissing.
I've had this hanging in my kitchen for some reason. Where can I go on this one? I've had this hanging on because this is like one of my favorite all-time photographs. Where are we going to take a look at this? Right here. Okay. And someone came over, because once in a while I have a friend that might decide to come over and visit. And he says, see the picture right there? This was when you made your very first appearance. I thought that about myself. I was like, okay.
Gravy is not a beverage.
And we are back here on the Greg Struss Show, again, every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, Channel 19, and on YouTube.com with the search words of Greg Struss Show. Now, I'm pushing it a lot, because you know what? I've actually been hearing from people, and I appreciate that. And people have been saying, you know what? I'm getting a lot out of what you're saying. Now, I certainly don't want to preach and say that I know all, because I don't. I'm just a guy that's got opinions like everybody else, beliefs like everybody else, and sees things, you know, for what they are, all right? Let me give you an example of what's been going on. So recently, Maxine Waters, I believe she is a congresswoman in the state of California. So she is now going out and basically inciting violence by saying it's okay to get in people's faces that work for President Trump's administration. All right, never mind all the work that people did during the civil rights movement in order to make things equal for people, okay? People of color, people from different ethnic backgrounds. How about the time when women were not able to vote in this country and women voted, okay? Women got to vote. Everybody got rights. But now all of a sudden, when I say they got rights, not like they have rights, but they were granted rights of American citizens, all right? We all got to ride on the same bus, sit in whatever seat we want to. People went through that. That was real. That happened. And what's happening now is real. And it's dangerous. You know, you see people coming out on award shows. I never laughed so hard and cringed at the disgusting display of temper tantrumness from Robert De Niro, all right? A world-class actor, Academy Award-winning actor, one of the best from his generation. And in a monologue, basically, when he walked out on this year's Tony Awards, which honors all the people on Broadway, and it's that evening for them to shine, and all those shows that people work so hard on. It is so insulting, I felt, to the people's work when somebody comes out and makes a political statement, whether or not I agree with that. I don't think politics belongs in entertainment, and I don't think it belongs in professional sports. Why? Because I want to escape the messaging every day that I'm watching on every single channel, the hate, okay? And people will say, well, President Trump hates people. And so whatever happened to rising above, okay? Like I was talking about my pettiness that I have been feeling, and I'm disappointed in myself that I feel petty and angry over something stupid. But it's kind of like an attack on my person when somebody doesn't think about me and only thinks about themselves, and especially when I've gone out of my way to care for somebody. Now that's on me, that's not on anyone else, and again, that little thing called expectation kind of creeps in and kind of destroys things, right? Because, you know, we can't have expectations. Just because we do good for someone doesn't necessarily mean that they owe us that, and I don't think that. I just think that there's a thing called karma, and that when somebody treats you nicely or respectfully and you don't do that in return, that somehow nature will correct it, however that happens. And I'm not into that. I don't like the negativity, and unfortunately I've had to succumb. I've kind of been weighted down by it. So I think I need to find a life and find an outlet, and obviously find something else to be doing professionally. But you know what? We have to do what we have to do. And moving on from a period of time takes effort. And you know what? Sometimes we get into a situation where we're comfortable, and then all of a sudden we're in that comfortable rut, and then questioning ourselves whether or not, oh, what does my degree think or matter? What does my life experience matter? Who's going to hire me for this particular position? And you know what? Unless I get out there, take the initiative and do it, how will I ever know? Instead of just sitting back and being angry about petty stuff. Take that pettiness, put it into action, and move on from a situation that no longer works. So that's Greg's advice to Greg this week. But anyway, talking about Maxine Waters. So now she goes out, talks about how every Trump, administrator or person that backs him should be bothered while they're eating in a public place, or should be bothered at their home when they're trying to sleep or spend time with their family, negating the fact that this is a job, and that just because people work for a person that some in a group may not like, doesn't necessarily mean that the person that works for that person shares in all those so-called values and beliefs. They have a job to do. And you know what? When they leave that job for the day, they deserve to go home and deserve to go out and deserve to have their own private time, because that's part of being an American and working. All right? They're not more important than anyone else, but now all of a sudden it's okay to attack people. And you know what? Once the verbiage starts, the words, what's the next part of that? It's going to be physical confrontation. And then what? Over political beliefs and over things that I don't have control over. We don't have control over what's going on. And trust me, what's going on right now is all part of a big deal and a big plan. And it's about negotiating. And nobody's seeing this. I mean, maybe some people are seeing it, but this is a negotiation of sorts. And it's playing right into the hands of the media and right into the hands of the people that watch the media that aren't self-aware. Right? Self-awareness comes through life experience and through realizing that, you know what people tell me, okay, I don't need people to tell me I'm great. I got to believe it for myself. If I'm constantly, and trust me, I was guilty of this. And you know what? Once I realized it and started changing my life and my behavior, it changed all of my relationships, because I'm no longer someone that can be walked on. No, you know what? It's not going to happen like that. Whether it was in family, whether it was whatever, I don't have to succumb to that just because I'm outnumbered by it. Again, I matter. And that self-awareness comes in and says, you know what? If no one else is caring about Greg and his feelings, then Greg has to look out for himself. And being bombarded and bullied and whatever, and I think it happens to everybody. So I don't think anyone really has great privilege. Some people have privilege, yeah. But you know what? Things happen in life. And I think that in some dysfunctional situations that, people want to keep people down. And this isn't about keeping people, and I don't know if this is about keeping people down per se, but it's about keeping people focused in the negativity and whatever's hot right now. Now, a couple weeks ago, I can't believe that I actually indulged in this kind of conversation. I just got so tired of listening to this, and I kind of inserted myself. This was someone I kind of knew casually. And when they started talking about some things, I just said, you know what? You know what I like about President Trump? Now, you should have seen the looks on the eyes, all right? And many of you might be saying right now, what? You like the president? No, what I like about President Trump, what I like about the person, is the ability to make a decision, right? May not be the popular decision, may not be something that I personally agree with. Okay, now listen to what I'm saying, all right? What I'm saying about President Trump is, and what I respect, is the fact that he carries through with what he believes in and what he believes is best for the country, regardless of what anybody else thinks or says. Now, did I say that I support President Trump? Did I say that I agree with all of his policies? Do I say, and I shouldn't have to get backed into that situation, because we're talking about as a person, all right? Do I like what's been reported, about his personal life and the so-called relationship? It's none of my business, because it happened before he was in office, okay? I'm saying the man, all right, some of his accomplishments and how he was able to beat out all of these people, all right, and nobody gives him credit for that. And I say beat him out. You know, he didn't have people giving him scripts. He didn't have people from CNN handing him, you know, questions like Hillary Clinton got, okay? He did it on his own, and he marched to the beat of his own drum, and he won over all of these people. Now, was Russia involved in that first live debate, in the second live debate, the third live debate? No, he came out, and he came out swinging. He had his message, and some people were just like, oh, there's no way he's going to win, and people didn't think he was going to win, and he probably didn't think he was going to win. So I'm talking about the accomplishment of, you know, pulling off that feat. And now he's in office, and we don't afford the respect for the office of the President of the United States. That's what I'm saying. Not the person, the office. And this is something that I learned going to Catholic school, okay, when I was younger. These are the things that adults taught me at home. The little thing called respect. Having respect for another. Having a respect for an elder. Having respect for somebody who's lived longer than I have. All right, there's a thing called respect. Respect of different ideas. And I will tell you, when I went to Columbia College in Chicago, it was a liberal arts education, all right? Liberal, a worldview. Because you know why? You got to hear about Socrates. You read a little bit about this person. You read a little bit about that person. And then you had a spirited debate, you know, about what they said and what they thought and what the meaning was. And now, this is, you know, I don't get it, and I'm not going to focus on it. What I'm going to say is this is where self-awareness comes in. This is the time for self-awareness to say, you know what? I got to look at things outside of what I'm seeing on television and radio. What are the results of what's happening in the country and in the world? And how does it play into what's going to be happening? All right? Am I going to partake in attacking people, which is what? Wrong, because they don't agree with me? Now, since when do I get to call out everybody that doesn't agree with me? All right? I don't agree with Robert De Niro, to be honest with you. I think that someone in a position of fame, as he has had, and his skill, that he has a lot to offer people. So stick to that. And in a public place, sharing, you know, your point of view, what makes you think I'm going to go out and buy a movie ticket for somebody that's telling me, you know, that's talking down to me and telling me how I should think? Now, I'm an adult, again, self-aware, and I can realize that this guy's a buffoon and he might be entertaining people. I don't know. I don't have to take that. I don't have to buy that. Much like you don't have to believe what I'm saying tonight. And again, this is just my point of view. Doesn't mean that I'm an expert. It's just what I'm seeing and what I believe is to be wrong, right? Okay, so there's a difference between right and wrong. And again, self-awareness to know what I'm going to buy and what I'm not going to buy. And it's okay if I don't buy it. And if 10 people over here agree with it, that's great. I don't have to get into that discussion either. And I broke my own rule, okay? So it's not perfect adherence. And I realized that I made a mistake by inserting myself, but I just get tired of listening to it and just felt like blowing off some steam and irritating some people in the process. Anyway, this is the Greg Struss Show, and we will be back to continue our discussion on self-awareness, pettiness, and finding the answer that works for who? Me. Not me so much, Greg Struss, but me, our viewers, and everyone. Me as an individual, whoever that me is. Anyway, I thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back in just a moment. I just don't like this lack of personal accountability, or that, you know, what's wrong for one person can be right for somebody else. And I think it's up to all of us to call it out. Now, I'll give you an example. Jamil Hill over on ESPN, she finally got removed from her position, made a comment that President Trump, is a white supremacist. But yet nothing seemed to happen. However, Roseanne Barr came out and made a comment about Valerie Jarrett looking like a cross between the Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes. Horrible. But really, what's the difference between the two? Somebody is inciting, is kind of coming up talking about race, and she's black, talked about the president of the United States being a white supremacist, and Disney didn't fire her, at least not immediately. They've removed her since because she's, made various comments, which is her right, but again, you don't get to make those comments in business. And nobody called her a racist. I mean, isn't that kind of racist in a sense to call someone a supremacist? I don't know. I think so. And then you have someone like Roseanne, but she was called a racist, and her comment was racist. But what was the difference between her racist comment and Jamil Hill's racist comment on ESPN or ESPN.com? There is no difference. So we can't have one set of standards, okay, for one group of people versus another person. And Roseanne is just a firebrand anyway, and she obviously has some issues. But she's lost everything now from those comments, and yet other people that have those similar beliefs don't. And that's got to stop. And I don't support that, and I don't think anyone is better than anybody else. But this race talk and everything else does what? It fires people up, and it breeds fear. It feeds off of fear, and it creates a new message that we all can't get along. And I'll tell you what, I have brothers and sisters that are dear friends. We have a lot of respect, and I'm not going to think differently because of comments that other people are making. But I'll tell you what, if I'm going to get fired for it or someone else is going to get fired for it, they should be fired for it too. They meaning the person that is talking about race. And I'm sorry, I don't care, I don't, equality is, to me, and maybe I'm wrong here, equality is about what? Being equal. So that means that when I share in the good, everybody shares in the good, but if I step out of line, I have to be punished. Everybody gets punished, all right? And maybe that's, maybe I'm looking at the world differently here. Different in the sense that what equality really is or what equality means to me. And this is not the country that I grew up in. And I'm not going to buy into it. Why? Because I'm self-aware enough to know that Jim Acosta at CNN, has to attract viewers. CNN has to attract viewers. Fox News has to attract viewers. MSNBC has to attract viewers. Why? Because they sell advertising. So the more viewers that follow the message are watching and buying those products that go in the coffers of NBC Universal or CNN or Time Warner or AT&T Time Warner or whatever they are now. And it's commercially driven, and these people are laughing all the way to the bank. Meanwhile, working Americans are angry and discouraged and disgusted. And yeah, the White House needs to do a better job on their messaging, because you know what? This blame game and saying, fake news and everything else, it's exhausting. We need to rise to a higher level. And if they're not doing it, then I got to do it in my own life and say, you know what? I'm not buying this anymore, and you're wrong. And that's it. And when conversations get to be too much, then I have to say, you know what? Enough's enough, because it really doesn't matter. It falls into the line of pettiness, okay? So overcoming the pettiness, becoming self-aware and self-accountable, that I'm not blaming other people. When I'm wrong, I try to, promptly admit it, so I'm not carrying that grudge and affecting my life and the lives of other people in a negative way. So anyway, I hope I made some sense tonight. And you can reach us here at the Greg Struss Show, gstrussman@gmail.com. Greg Struss, glad you joined us tonight. Hope you got something out of this. I just try to, let's think, okay? Let's think, let's take action, let's be accountable, and let go of the pettiness and become self-aware and realize that we're important and that the people around us are important too. Anyway, Greg Struss, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Goodbye, everybody.